What is your best ghost/paranormal experience story? I don't care how many times something like this is posted. I will always sort through it. When my middle child was about 5 to 3, we lived on an old house with a lot of poorly built self-done renovations done on it. There was an under-house storage area/workshop area accessible from one of the bedrooms. This workshop has a hatch door to the dirt under the house. Anyway, my daughter used to complain about the blue lady that lives under the house. We moved and never heard about it again. My brother's bedroom was next door to mine growing up. One afternoon, he asked me what I was doing the previous night that made me laugh so much. Confused, I pressed him for details. About 3 a.m. last night, your laughter woke me up. It sounded like you were pacing your room, too. Pacing and laughing. At this point I told him that I wasn't home last night. I'd been at a friend's house. He went pale. To this day he swears blind that it was _my laugh. I have a very distinct laugh, apparently. Several years ago I had a recurring dream about burning alive in a hotel. It was so realistic I could feel the pain and hear screams. Each dream would be more and more detailed. By the last dream I could make out the exact details of the building. When we went on vacation we stopped in a small city and looked for a hotel, and we stopped at the exact hotel in my dream. I just froze and repeatedly asked if we could go to a different hotel. After pestering my parents about it we went somewhere else. It burned down the night we were supposed to stay there and killed 14 people. I had a dream a friend died. A few days later she killed herself. Another time I was alone and heard a male shout "hey" in my ear while sleeping on the couch. Got a phone call a few hours later, a male friend died. When I was 6 I saw an older man holding hands with a little girl in my kitchen. We stared at each other for what felt like 5 minutes and then they disappeared. I've had a lot of weird shit happen to me in my life. Already told it, but when I was younger, like 3 or 4, my mom said I used to talk to something or someone in the corner of my room. I would sit down and hold a conversation for hours. Mom would ask me who I was talking to. Then one day I said Grandpa. I then said something about him. I think it was his mustache and something about a joke he used to tell. I couldn't have known any of this since he had died 3 years earlier and I had never been told about him nor seen his picture since I was so little. Schizophrenic family member went on a bit of an alcoholic bender, pre-diagnosis, and ended up in the hospital. Her husband, who was a bit older, passed away suddenly while she was in a coma. When she awoke, first thing she said to my mom was, "I know, husband's name is gone. He came to tell me." Very freaky. I've told this story on another subreddit, but I'll tell it again. I was house/pet sitting for my bio mom and stepdad back in June, and was on a video call with my best friend. I was the only living person in that house, but my best friend said that there was a woman standing behind me in the kitchen, while I was sitting on the couch with my laptop on my lap. When I was a kid, I lived with just my mom. Every few nights after she went to bed and turned off all of the TVs, I'd hear a man and woman casually having a quiet conversation in our kitchen area. I always had to concentrate really hard to make sure I was actually hearing something, because it was so faint I couldn't make out words. This continued for years, and I thought my mom wouldn't believe me if I told her. After we moved out, I finally told her. She said she'd always experienced the same thing. Not sure if it was a ghost or something like that, but back in 2015 when I was younger, I was at my cousin's place. We were hanging out in her grandpa's backyard. As we are messing around, we hear screaming and banging coming from the living room window of the house. We look up and see a woman crying hysterically and hitting the windows. We shout and ask her if she's okay, but she tells us to leave her alone and shuts the window completely. Her grandpa and grandma weren't at home at the time that happened. The strangest thing was, when we went into the house the woman was gone, and we just brushed it off. Used to see a human-like shadow running down my stairs and into my living room. These would always happen while I was playing on my computer and I never thought much of it, and once my mother cleansed the house I never saw that silhouette again. Reading this as I'm searching for a new house really makes me hope it's not haunted. My uncle said he saw Grandpa and Grandma waving him in. A few days later he died. My aunt had a similar experience. Grandpa and Grandma was standing next to her. A few days later, she died. My friend's aunt had a similar experience. She was heard talking to someone for a long time. She said she was talking to Tom. Tom had died years ago. That same week, she died. It seems that dead relatives might visit people to help them with the transition to the other side. My grandmom, who has traveled the world, was in some foreign country having a grand old time, walked across a bridge and started crying hysterically. She told me she remembered that she had fallen off a bridge and drowned as a kid. Like past life stuff. It isn't any old bridge, it was just that one specific one. She was young grandma when she told this story, like 60, so I don't think it was a dementia thing. She's old now and still sharp as whip. Also, I don't think she made it up, because why would you want to scare your grandkid just for fun? This isn't my story but my mom's. When she was a young teenager, the moonlight would hit her closet door in an oval shape. One night she had a dream that these goblin-like things came out of the oval like it was a portal. They stood around her bed and taunted her. One sat in a rocking chair by her bed. When she woke up, the rocking chair was still gently rocking. Obviously it's likely she hit the rocking chair in her sleep and caused it to rock while she was having a terrifying dream, but this story scared the shit out of me when I was younger. Long story short, went down the wrong hallway in a very old hotel in Norway following the sound of conversation. I was hungry and I couldn't find the dining hall. No people, just old empty halls filled with even older furniture and pictures. When I got to the end, stairs to a dark, empty cellar, and dead silence. Hair standing on the back of my neck, I retraced my steps with increasing velocity. Mentioned I got lost to a friend. They said the place is known to be haunted. It's on the brochure. Unbeknownst to me beforehand, hotel staff had many stories to share, of their own experiences and passed down stories. I was in my early 20s upstairs on my computer. I had my door open slightly, which opens onto a staircase. Out of the corner of my eye I see a dark figure move outside the door and peek in, as I remember clearly seeing red eyes. Naturally I freaked the hell out, ran downstairs, grabbed a knife and my dog. I acted completely irrational, but I was overcome by an unexplainable sense of fear that I was in grave danger. The house I grew up in had a really spooky atmosphere, like footsteps at night and doors opening by themselves. So when was about 8 or so, I was reading a book and I have no idea why I looked up, but in that moment a hunched over old lady scurried past my room. It was creepy cause we locked eye contact for a second. When I checked the hall she was gone. Last year I went on a hike. A not too dense forest on a stiff hill. I was making some photos of leaves or something. The path was narrow, so I went 2 steps to the side when I saw someone coming, and I waited a little so the person would have space and time to pass by me. I got back on the track, but that person wasn't there. They weren't in the between the trees and they didn't U-turned. They were a pretty big person. I would have seen them. They just disappeared and I was spooked. When I was a kid we lived in a place there had been a murder. I had the upstairs to myself. I would occasionally hear noises from inside the wall. One time I thumped back and got more thumps in return. I did not do that again. I woke up one day at 2 a.m., and I had an eerie feeling like someone close to me is in trouble. Later, that day I got to know that my ex-math teacher passed away. She helped me through an anxiety attack and really helped me get through college. We were on vacation in Egypt, and the first night in the hotel I got to sleep. In the middle of the night I woke up and opened my eyes, and right before me was a white face of an old man staring at me and then disappeared. Had to sleep in another room for 3 nights with lights on after that. I completely was in terror because it was so vivid. Multiple times I've had the experience where I feel a hand caressing my back and shoulders while I lay in bed. This is usually accompanied by another feeling of someone's/something's breath in my ear when they say I want you. I need you. I've also had an experience where on a windy night I hear my uncle, who at the time recently died, call my name. It was clear as day. Not a whisper, but full-on audible, like you were talking to someone. I woke up and saw a shadow standing above me, reaching out to me. My mom told me it was an angel, but I'm a pagan, so obviously I disagreed. It was not a good feeling, it was very negative, it was like it was forced to be there. I very much didn't like the experience. But who would? My house is notorious for housing spirits and shenanigans, so this wasn't a shock to anyone, but at the same time it was one of the creepier experiences we've had. I've also been scratched on the arm while shitting. Fun times. Sometimes at around 1 a.m. I will hear singing downstairs. It's rather gentle and I like to fall asleep to it. I know it's neither of my parents because they both work, so they clock out at around 11 to 12 p.m. The singing is like motherly. One time though, when I came home from after school, I can see someone sitting on the sofa. I walk in and say hello back from school, then I heard a faint hi. As I walk into the living room I see almost a bright silhouette of a lady getting up and leaving, perhaps the same one who sings in the night. When I was like 6, me and a neighbor's kid used to play a game we named Ghost Guy. We would grab a rock and usually put it under a blanket. Then we would run away and make sure no one would enter the room. Then we would come back after a few minutes and the rock would usually be gone. We would run around trying to find the rock and we wouldn't find it because it probably didn't exist for a moment. Then we would say, "Oh, I got a message." Of course that's made up in my mind. The rock is in the kitchen. Then we would find the rock in the place we checked like 10 times. I woke up in the middle of night to go pee. As I was walking out of my bedroom towards the bathroom, I saw a semi-transparent beaver run out of the bathroom and down the hall away from me. I don't believe in that sort thing at all, not one bit, but I am %100 sure I saw a beaver run out of that bathroom. I saw a dark apparition who looked like a hooded monk in a public park 5 to 6 years ago. When I was 12, I went to a cabin with my family. I tend to see the paranormal. I actually saw a man hanging by a noose twice. It was in my room too. This particular thing terrified me. I didn't sleep for the next day or two. I was staying the night at my mom's condo, but I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I gave up and hopped on her laptop. From my left ear, I heard my late uncle say, "I feel like a fucking spies." Ha 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 ha. I chalked it up to just being tired. I was talking to my cousin the next day, my late uncle's daughter, and told her the story. She burst out laughing and said I have his ashes in the spice cabinet. She lives on the other side of the country. I've never been to her home, nor have we ever discussed where she kept his ashes. It was comforting to catch a glimpse of his humor. About 15 years ago we bought a house from a woman who died on the exact same day she signed the papers selling the house. She had 2 dogs and we just said we would keep them rather than have them go to the pound. Anyways, fast forward a few years, and one night I wake up and there is a ghostly form of a woman, long white dress. She looks at me, nods/waves/smiles, details fuzzy, it was an impression in a dream, and leaves. Next day I wake up and find the one small dog dead, old age likely. Cannot help but think that she came from the other side to fetch her dog. Creepy as hell. So I was at scouting camp, sleeping in a tent with a few other people. We saw 2 light blue semi-transparent figures near the goal at the other side of the field. One standing, one laying down. Suddenly they were at the tiny forest across the field. When the shape of a face appeared in the side of the tent, where I was laying, damn, it was the most creepy yet fun night so far. I was dreaming like half awake and half asleep and could see the room with my eyes closed, and above me was a snowman-looking ghost and elf spirit sucking the angry off my body, like feeding on my soul and making me feel afraid. So I try really hard to wake up and try and scare the ghost and am barely able to, but I slowly wake and go roar at the where the ghosts were in the room. I scared the ghost, BC he scared me. One time I opened my door and saw my dad walk into the kitchen, which is right beside my room, but I couldn't see the kitchen from where I was standing. So I walk out to say something to him, look into the kitchen and no one is in there. I swear I saw my dad walk in there.